being said, let's first welcome Sean Spence with Better Nonprofits ArmChair Telethon. Put your hands together for Sean.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to actually, be in front of people. I've done over 50 of these 1 million cups now. I drove in from Columbia, which is where I live and where the company is based. And of the over 50, I believe this is the second one that has actually been live. And so it's very cool. And so that's, I've got my little computer. Normally I'm sitting in literally my armchair where this company was invented in my living room, and I'm sitting there with, running my program, my Zoom, or my PowerPoint on Zoom. So I'll just use it as my notes. But thank you so much. I'm Sean Spence. I'm CEO of ArmChair Telethon. And we are having, in the middle of, at the end of, a branding transition from Better Nonprofits to ArmChair Telethon. Better Nonprofits may completely go away. I'm happy to talk about that more in Q&A if you would like to. That's one of the many kind of interesting things we could get into in the details if you want to. Many of the 1 million cups want me to do like 3 questions. Some want one, someone at the beginning and the end, someone just at the end. So I do it at the beginning and the end just to accommodate everybody. So I have my 3 questions. One, what problems should we prepare for as we build a virtual company? Because we are building a truly virtual company, not just, we're a poor startup, so we want to say we're virtual until we can afford office space. We literally do have not employees, they're all on contract. We have contractors all over the country and in I think 3 foreign countries right now. And we have customers all over the country and have really from the first month we were in business. And so we truly are building a virtual company, and it's a constant struggle, one where we're constantly solving problems, and I think we're winning that struggle, but a struggle is still a struggle, right? So any advice or questions about that, I'm happy to talk about. What do we need? We need introductions to nonprofits who want to raise money and awareness, which literally means every nonprofit you've ever met in your life. And so we can help usually 70 to 80, 85% of the nonprofits out there. And even if we can't, we can share some things that might be helpful. I'm happy to have conversations. I'm a very nonprofit oriented guy, and so I'm happy to have those conversations whether we can help them directly or not. And then finally, for those of you, which is most of this room, who are in the entrepreneurial community and like to have those entrepreneurial conversations, I love to have them. Feel free to email me at Sean, S-E-A-N, at betternonprofits.com. And I have a card if you want to get it when we leave and all that. But not looking for sales or anything like that. I just love to have those conversations. I love to hear what you're doing. I love to share what we're doing. I love to share the problems that we face. And so you're welcome to please email me anytime. What is the problem that we solve? Nonprofits and others need money. They need to get their message out. They need to do it as inexpensively as possible. So that's really right where we are. We provide a solution to those things. We create virtual telethons that in many ways just change the game for fundraising and are an evolution. Now, some in this room are like me. We're of an age where we grew up with Jerry Lewis, and the muscular dystrophy telethon and some of those. I mean, for some of us, it was a tradition in our family. My wife's family, apparently spent 8 or 10 hours every year watching the telethon, just sitting there. And for those, then there are others in the room who probably didn't grow up with that experience. You're not of an age where telethon necessarily means anything to you. In a nutshell, what a telethon is, it's a long-form entertainment. Jerry Lewis got up to 24 hours. Ours are generally 8 hours long. And it's entertainers of every kind, musicians, bands, magicians, comedians, everything you can think of that's fun and gives people a reason to be there. But then also in between those entertainers of every kind, you're learning about the charity that the telethon focuses on, whether it's muscular dystrophy, as Jerry Lewis's telethon did, or Boys and Girls Club, or the Food Bank, or you think about all the charities that that's the kinds of folks generally that we work with, although we have some other applications, and again, happy to talk about that in Q&A. But what happens is we attract a large audience, which was exactly what happened with Jerry Lewis, and a tiny, tiny percentage actually give to the charity, but because of the law of large numbers, that equals real money. And so like we've raised over $250,000 for charities so far all around the country. We've raised everything from small but amounts that people were pretty happy with to over $50,000. And it's just something that works extremely well, and I'm happy to talk more about the details of that. But bottom line is that's how it works. And we manage everything. We build everything from scratch. And I do it all from my armchair, or somebody who works with me now around the country helps to build it. But I'm still at this stage involved with everything one way or the other. Our primary market is nonprofit organizations, and I hit that. Boys and Girls Club, Food Bank. Think about your favorite charity, and that's probably who we're either working with or going to work with. We also do some other things I could talk about in Q&A if you want. The business model, thanks to some proprietary processes that I have developed over the or learned, of course, over the last almost 30 years, we can do what we do anywhere, from anywhere. So living in Columbia, we could do an event in Sedalia. We could do an event in Kansas City. We could do an event in California. We could do an event in Florida. I did, a couple of months ago, I did 2 different events in Texas, right? So we're doing stuff all over the country. And think about it. Everybody in this room, really honestly, everybody in this room, you could figure out, if you wanted to take the time, it would take you a while, you could create a telethon yourself. You could figure out how the technology works. Everybody in here is smart enough. You could figure it out. You call some friends. Who's my smart friend who knows about entertainers and whatever, right? But if I said, what I want you to do is do it in Poughkeepsie, New York, where you've never been in your entire life and you're probably never going to go, and you don't know anybody who lives in Poughkeepsie, and I want you to create a telethon, do it profitably for you, do it profitably for the organization, do it not knowing anybody, do it not hiring a staff to be there or any of those things, and make that happen and do it in 6 weeks, or we've done it in less than that, right? That would be, frankly, pretty impossible for most people, but that is something that we do, and we do it all the time. Secret sauce, small first mover advantage. Actually turning out to be a little bigger than I thought, because I've been doing this for about 8 months now. Still don't have any real national competition. We have more and more local competition, but I still can't find anybody who, like me, lives in one place and builds telethons all over the country. Proprietary processes that I mentioned, and really, I don't want to make it too fancy schmancy. It's really just smart, structured networking that I've really systematized over the years and added the long distance components as an event organizer who was doing stuff, living in Missouri, doing stuff in New York, living in Idaho, doing stuff in Florida. So I've learned and created things to do that. We have a national network of super connected influencers. So I got a 3-star general on my advisory board. I got a woman who has George Clooney's cell phone number and he'll call her back. I've got a guy who was on the executive team, and here's another age thing. Some of you are going to remember this, some of you are not. But back when, oh my gosh, I blanked on the name of the company, so it doesn't matter. But at the time, it was the largest IPO in history, right? It was the largest stock offering in the history of the world, and he was on the executive board there, right? And he was on the first team that marketed the very first laptop computer, right? So we've got all these really cool people who are helping us do stuff. And this a large national network. Competitive analysis. Today there is little or no truly national competition, as I said. More and more it's happening everywhere. 3 to 5 years, every nonprofit in America is either going to be doing a telethon or trying to figure out how to do a telethon. It's just going to be one more tool in the fundraiser's tool chest, and both fundraising and marketing, because the other thing that we figured out is that we reach more people through social media than most organizations, like by a factor of maybe even 5 or 10 or more than they've ever reached ever before in the history of social media. Traction, we've been profitable since the first month. My first $12,000 in checks I got before I had a bank account or an LLC, and I had to create those things so that I could cash them. Our goal is to grow at least an average of 15% a month, and we're doing that. So that's all going well. We really don't need to raise money to grow, but we may do that at some point. Right now we're just doing it through cash flow, and the plan really is just to continue doing that. Very quickly, here's some questions. Normally, if this were a PowerPoint, I would flash this up and I would make you read it yourself. But here's some questions someone might ask me that would be interesting if you knew my story. Why are you speaking to over 51 million cups? How is this going to save your other company, Every Event Gives, which is another startup that is like 8 years old now, and it's amazing what this company is doing for that company. What is the Billionaires Project? Is it hard to launch a startup with multiple sclerosis, which you might have guessed I have a little bit of an issue? That's MS. I've had MS for a long time. How did you build such a powerhouse advisory board, which are lessons that really apply to everybody and would apply to any nonprofit, would apply to any entrepreneurial venture of any kind, any startup. Okay, my 3 questions, which of course is, what could you do for me is among those. What problems should we prepare for as we build a virtual company? Love to have that conversation. We need introductions to nonprofits and who want to raise money and awareness. And connect with me if you'd like to have entrepreneurial conversations. Sean at betternonprofits.com. Thank you, 1 Million Cups. I am Sean Spence. Let's do Q&A. That's my favorite part. It's closed.
Me?
Yes, Susan. Yes,
So say we decide to do this, we
hypothetically.
yeah, hypothetically, because we had talked already.
Yeah.
It's nice to be the cutting edge on something. Everybody a few years ago, Giving Tuesday, which was yesterday, everybody slowly got. Now everybody's doing it. So if we decide to do this, could other not-for-profits in this region do it as well? And do you think that's an issue?
We do not, we'll only do 1 a quarter. So we leave at least a few months in between, like when we go to a city, or in this case, it would be more of a region.
Yeah.
So that's something we do. And the reason we do that, by the way, to expand that on the question, is actually not because it's necessarily a big deal. In the same way that you guys might do an event. You guys do a fundraising mailing, and so is the Heart Association, and so is the Salvation Army, and so is the blah, 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 right? Every single thing you ever do, there's 10 other things going on within 2 weeks of what you're doing. So I really think this is honestly just one more thing like that. The reason that we do put the limit is not that I think people are going to get tired of telethons, it's I don't want people in any specific area to get tired specifically of me, right? Of hearing from me and hearing from my team, because we reach out in the community a lot, and if we did 10 telethons in 10 days, then we would reach out to the same people 5 or 10 times saying, hey, do you want to be involved with this and this and this and this? And that would get old. But otherwise, it's just the same kind of fundraising thing as anything else.
Okay.
Christine?
I'm just wondering, what is your fee to the nonprofit organization?
Just so everybody knows, we follow really, I have a long history with the nonprofit world. Long history with entrepreneurship, also long history in politics. I've had a very mixed, bizarre career that we could talk about another time. But as a result of my involvement in nonprofit in a very integral way for a very long time, we follow a level of ethics that is not just what is considered the best ethics in the startup world, but that we try very hard to make sure is the best ethics in the nonprofit world. And so, for example, to head off a question that I get almost every 1 million cups, we do not charge a percentage. Right, so we have a fee, and it's all on our website, right? It's all right there. If you go to ArmChairTelethon.com, you'd see exactly what our fee is, and it's based on population. That's probably all going to change. The way we price is very good for our customers. It's not as good for us, where we just did the first thing that we thought of, and frankly, a lot of our customers get a lot more value from us than they're paying for, and they'd be happy to pay us more. So we're figuring all of that out. The short answer to your question is, let's say we did something in Sedalia, it would be $3,000, right? We are talking to an organization that shall remain nameless that is based in Sedalia but covers a much wider region than that. And we're going to go ahead, and since they're in Sedalia, we're going to go ahead and charge them what we would charge in Sedalia, which would be the $3,000. Then we have a price for larger communities. We have a price for statewide. We have a price for national. We have done all of those things. We've done local, smaller, local, larger, statewide, national. We're getting ready to do another national telethon. And those just, it goes up to $10,000. Honestly, I'm probably going to lower that price because it's really not as hard to do. It's not that much harder to do a national telethon online. It has more to do with the length of the telethon. So once you're doing an 8-hour telethon, it's not that much harder to do an 8-hour national telethon than it is to do an 8-hour telethon for Kansas City. So that was the incredibly long answer to your question. And if you want more details about that, ask or go to armchairtelethon.com. Yes, ma'am.
Just as a possible scenario,
Sure.
what if I wanted to sponsor a quarterly fundraiser that's food related on behalf of a nonprofit?
Oh, and you wanted to book us for a specific area every quarter?
What would that look like on your end?
Well, that is a really interesting question that I've never thought about. Off the top of my head, it would look like, by the way, that would be a really powerful thing because then you start to get into economies of scale and more of a snowballing of the money. That's a really cool idea. When we think about pricing as of right now, I'd say, well, we would book it like 4 telethons. But also maybe we wouldn't because, one of the first things that we do when we create a telethon is we create what we most often call an advisory board for the telethon, which then becomes the foundation of everything we do. And it's much larger than when you do a physical event, right? Okay, how many people here have ever planned a nonprofit fundraising event? Raise your hand, right? A lot of people in the room. So if I said go into that room and the planning committee is in that room, and if you walked into that room and there were 50 people in that room, most of us would turn around and walk out, or we would resign, or we would run away screaming, because that big of a planning committee, we know what that can be like. It can be a real nightmare. You've got your complainers, you've got your people who just want to make sure they say whatever it is that they want to say, you've got the person who's always right, you've got so many, the person who doesn't want to do anything and they just want to sit there, and they're still a pain because now everybody else sees, oh, well, they're not doing anything, so why do I have to do anything, right? So you got all that. What we learned is that actually is not the case in the virtual planning world. So what I learned quite by accident when I planned my very first telethon, I accidentally let the advisory board become 58 people, right? And then learned that in fact that was not a problem, and that in fact most of the rules apply. So like 1/3 of the people are really great, right? 1/3 of the people are fine, and you're happy you got them, and 1/3 of the people are a complete waste of your time. But in the virtual world, you don't have to spend much time at all with 1/3 of the people who are a complete waste of your time, because you're not sitting in a room with them. If they're asking questions, they're not doing in front of everybody else. They're not, all those things that are a waste are not a waste. So we've got a very large advisory board. This is such a long answer to your question. But let me finish, if you would, please. So once we created the advisory board for one, then that's the foundation for the advisory board for all of them. So we could figure out other cost kinds of things. That could be a very cool thing. And there would be some really cool economies of scale.
Because I was curious, with the nonprofit, we'd have to work back through the nonprofit to you. Because curiously, I found out this fall, because I'm very interested in a local super historic landmark here, and was wanting to do a fundraiser on their behalf.
Got it.
And actually found out I would actually have to get their permission to raise money for them.
Yes. Oh, believe me, I've learned that too. Because, by the way, as we were looking at all the models for this, I thought about, well, why don't I just pick people and just start doing it? And of course, that didn't work out, which was just fine. Your thing is getting more and more specific. I'm happy to talk to you about it later, or we can email or talk on the phone, whatever. Great, thank you. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Just lastly, what we can do for you as a community.
The best thing is introduce me to any nonprofit that needs help raising money and raising awareness, which is everyone you've ever met in your life. And that would really be doing a double favor. It would be helping us and my company, and it would be helping them because we can help most nonprofits.